First couple of minutes, just doing a little bit of housekeeping regarding the class, answer any questions that you all have, and make sure there's anything immediate on your minds to make sure we cover those. And then we'll do a short discussion, just like last week, first on the key topics for this week, talk about the component architecture in React a little bit, and then a little bit more about debugging in React. And then want to spend most of the time today doing some live coding. So we'll do some initial rendering. We'll continue working on the React blog project that we kind of started last week very briefly, and then kind of start building upon that using some of the topics for this week. All right, some housekeeping. Say it one more time. Reminders, two forms that would very much appreciate you all filling out each session. First, obviously, is the attendance, which I know some of you are doing that already. Thank you so much. Reminder, that's how you get credit for attending this session. And then also at the end, there's also a separate anonymous feedback form. That's really just to make sure I am doing the best thing I can, and if there's anything I can do doing better, that's the way to let me know. Of course, you can always just directly tell me as well. But that's just designed to make sure we're maximizing these sessions for everyone. All right, second thing is, as I mentioned last week, these sessions are being recorded and they are available for you to look at. So there's a repository linked in the J announcements channel, and I can show you all really quick because I think it's a bit non-intuitive. So where that is, let me open up the Slack. Okay, so here's my Slack, J announcements, and at the top there's this J class info tab. And if in this down below, if you scroll, there's a link to the mentor session recording repository. If you go to this link, it should have every session's recording from all the group mentors. We should all be uploading in there, so that's the easiest place probably to find all the recordings. Also, just FYI, on the agenda pages that I send every week, I also add the recording links to them after the sessions. So you can also find it through those agenda pages that I send over. All right. Other things, I think you all hopefully saw this in the channels. If you all haven't completed the week one assignment yet, it does need to be submitted by Tuesday, 25th. And if you don't submit anything, you will automatically be dropped from the class. So another warning for you all, make sure to turn that in week one. The goal is to make sure you're not falling behind with the class from the get-go. So that's why that deadline is there. So if you are having any trouble with week one, ask questions in this session, utilize the Slack, set up one-on-one time with mentors. Like we're all here to help. So if you need that, just let us know. Any those are the main logistics ones. Any other questions that folks have? Just logistics wise for the class? Okay. Go ahead and take that as we should be good. Cool. So one other thing, I realized there was one question that I only saw after last week's session that someone asked. I just quickly addressed it here. The question about ESLint, which you all read about in the week one materials. So what is it and how does the extension that you were asked to install work? So just in a quick nutshell, ESLint is, think of it like a spell check, like in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, but it's designed to make sure you're following best practices and the rules of a specific programming language. So for example, there'll be an ESLint with a Java configuration, JavaScript configuration for JavaScript specific stuff. There's a React specific ESLint configurator. So to make sure you're following the rules of React and best practices. So that's really what it is. And the extension essentially in VS Code just allows that to run in the background continuously. So as you're developing your code, you will get like visible errors essentially in your editor that, hey, something here you should fix. And hopefully we'll see some of that pop up in the as we do some coding later in the session. All right. Any other questions before we jump into content for this week? Demo on PR requests. Yes, we can do that as part of when we write some code later. All right, let's talk few minutes just about two of the key concepts for this week. So the first, as you might have, if you've read the materials already for this week, one of the big things that we're starting to talk about are components. And components are a really valuable concept to understand. It's one of the superpowers of React, I would say. And the idea is with components, right, is you take a piece of code, right? Maybe it's certain like HTML tags, certain styling, certain logic. You just make that into its own separate piece that's isolated from the rest of your application, and then you can insert it in other parts of your application as you want. So I think the right-hand side chart, which I found online, is pretty helpful visualization of this. So in this case, you can see there are four components that are actually created, which are these one, two, three, four different shapes. And then we can just use them, maybe multiple copies of each of them to pull together maybe a full website, right? So you can see, like, for example, there's two of these purple circles that are shown on the website. In reality, you only write the code for the purple circle once, and you just essentially say, give me two of those. So that's where it starts to become really powerful for making it much more easier to develop applications, make sure things are consistent, make it easier for things to be maintained. It just helps in a lot of different ways. So that is the underlying sort of value of having this component architecture in the first place. I will say early on, as you're working on your applications at the beginning, it might seem like a lot of extra work to move things into their own components, but trust me, as your application gets more and more complex, you will appreciate the work that you do to organize things into components. Any questions about React components? We'll go through also like live example of all this and how to actually make this all work. All right. So, second big topic for this week is to start talking about getting a sense for debugging in React. I think you all have obviously done some amount of programming and development in the past in some capacity, so you probably are familiar with the need to do debugging as things don't work. So there's a lot of materials that are covered in the material for this week. I just pulled out a couple of things, just high-level strategies that I would impart on you all. I think the first thing I would actually say is console log is your friend in debugging. Don't underestimate just if you don't know what's going on somewhere, just console log the thing and see what spits out in the console, and it'll probably start to give you some insights into what's actually going on in the application. And trust me, there are very senior engineers who still heavily rely on just logging things to the console. So is it not the most sophisticated thing, but it's simple and powerful. So don't be afraid to use that. I use it a lot. In terms of things which are probably more useful, there's the React developer tools. You can see a screenshot here on the right, and I can show you also a live version of it. It's a more fancy debugging tool in the browser and the inspector, which is designed for React. So you can click through the different components. You can see different properties of the components on the right. So a little bit more organized way to figure out what's going on in your React application and different components. There's like other tools you can use, more traditional things like you can put breakpoints in your code editor and have it stop at different points, and those things are available as well. So those are generally the debugging tools, I would say. I would say the one other thing I will just this might be obvious to you all, but I would just say it anyway because seen people maybe not do this as much in previous classes. Just make sure like when you're running the app, well, first off, before you submit an assignment, just run it to make sure it runs. I have been in situations where an assignment gets submitted to me and I try to review it and I open it up and it won't even run. So just make sure the app just runs in the first place on your local machine. And then also make sure to check the console to make sure there's no errors or warnings that are coming up. So that might indicate there's something that's actually broken. So fix that before you submit things as well. So pretty simple, but just saying it explicitly so you all make sure I've said it. And then finally, just is more just like an extra thing. You don't have to worry too much about it, but I would just put it out there for you all in case you are interested in researching more about it. There's this new tool that came out in the last few months called React Scan for performance monitoring of applications and making things more efficient. Again, not super relevant for the class as you're getting started, but something you might want to look into if you're interested in down the road. Just putting that out there. Any questions about debugging? I will also say like a lot of this is just practice. The more you develop things and more issues you see, the better and more comfortable you'll get at this. Cool. All right. So no questions. Then let's do some coding. So let me switch over. Perfect. Okay. So if I think many of you were in this session last week. So what we did last week is we just created a brand new project for our blog that we're going to create, a React blog. And we're just build on this application as we go to the class to sort of just to see more examples of the concepts that we're going to be talking about in this class. So as of right now, this is the application. It's just the default application right now that Vite gave us. So we're going to rip this out and start putting some actual things that we want in this application. So first thing I'm going to do, just to demonstrate best practice with this, is I'm going to put all the code we write this week onto a separate branch. So right now, let me make sure you all can see. I'm on the main branch. You can see that also if I say get branch, I'm on the main branch. I'm going to switch to a new branch. I'm going to make a new branch, call it week 2. And I'm now on week 2 branch. And so we'll make all the changes here. And then I'll push it up to GitHub and we'll do a sample PR too for all this code. And let me just rerun the project. Yeah, project is still good. Cool. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rip out all of the code that's here because we don't need it. So we can grab all of this, put React blog, get rid of this code, get rid of all of this that we don't need. We don't really need this SVG, so I'm going to get rid of this as well. Uh, we don't need this either. So we get rid of it. Okay, so now if I save, great. So new project, our text is here. Okay, so first thing I think we should do is we should figure out what actually we want in this blog. What I'm thinking is maybe we start with, let's just, we'll have a list of blog articles and some data object, and we'll just want to try to render them out first in the list. So let's figure out what we want in this blog. Let's see. There we go. So Uh, let's talk to this. What do we think a blog article should have? What data should it have? I think definitely a title for sure. That'll be a string. Time. Yep. So publication time. So we'll do publication date maybe for now. Yep. The actual content. That's right. We'll call it the maybe we'll call it the body. Yep. We can do an image. So I'm gonna save it as an image URL in this case that we can grab in. Say more, Laura, when you say a nav. And also, folks should feel free to also just speak as well. You can feel free to keep using the chat, but you can also just come off mute if you want.
Oh, sorry, like a navigation bar to kind of help redirect you to different articles, maybe?
Yep, yep. So I'm just gonna put that separately, but yes, we should have some sort of like header with a navigation. Love that. Contact form or review. Let's add it to the list as well. Yep, we could have a video. I'm just gonna say could also be a video. What else do we think if we just think about the articles themselves, what sort of data do we want on them? So we have title, publication date, the body. I don't know. Maybe we should have an author. Give credit to someone, probably for writing it.
I was thinking like a category and tags.
Yep. Let's call them tags, and we'll allow multiple tags. So maybe we'll have an array. Screen reader. Yes, we should definitely make sure that this is accessible for sure, the entire application. The good news is if we use the defaults mostly, they should already be pretty good for that, but we'll keep that in mind for sure. It's a good call. Anything else that you think we should add? I feel like this is actually a pretty good list that we can get started with at least. Cool. I agree. We are good. I'm just gonna add a note here for good add videos. Well, cool. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm no, actually let's leave it. Let's keep it simple for now. Let's just do images and maybe down the road we'll add videos. Okay. So we have this data, which I think is a pretty good start. Let's It'll be nice, I think, to have some dummy data. And I think generating dummy data is becomes much easier with tools like ChatGPT. So that's something I've used it for. So let's do that. So I'm gonna say I'm creating a blog about React. I need some dummy data for the articles. Please generate a JavaScript array of dummy articles that follow the following schema. I'm gonna paste that in, and lovely. This seems pretty good. Cool. Uh, yeah, okay. The content can be probably a little bit more, but this suffices. Cool. I'm just gonna copy this. If you want to spiel about my thoughts on AI for this class, you can go back and watch recording from last week. But in a nutshell, wouldn't use it to generate code for the class, but I think things like this, which like just generate dummy data, I think is a great use for. So let's copy this in. So I'm gonna just store this in an array. So I'm going to say const articles and just paste in the data. Oh, lovely. It actually had it for us already. Gonna get rid of ChatGPT. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so cool. We have some data. Now you'll notice actually there's this error here already, which is articles is assigned a value but never used. So this is an example of ESLint working. It's essentially telling us there's a rule that says, hey, if you have created a value, some variable and you never used it, like you shouldn't have it. You should just get rid of it. So it's technically not incorrect code, but it's not best practice. So this is an example of like what ESLint does, is it gives these errors. Okay, so just to keep things a little bit clean, I'm actually going to create a new file. This is also generally what I would do in an application. I'll call it maybe data.js, and I will move everything related to data into this file just to keep things organized. And then to make it accessible in other files, I'll just export this variable. So now I can go ahead and import it into this file, which we'll do here in a second. Okay, I'll leave this to-do list down here, things we can do. All right, let's keep going. And by the way, at any point someone has a question, just come off mute, ask away, please. That's why we're here. It's to learn. All right. I'd say next thing we should do maybe is we should just get these articles actually showing up on the screen maybe. So it doesn't just look like this sad blog right now. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first need to access the variable in some way. And so the way I can do that is I can import it into this app file. Uh, great. Yeah. Catch up on the recording for sure, Anthony. Thanks for joining. Um, so in this case, I'm just going to say import, and we called it articles from, oops, from, we don't need this, from data. Why is this? Oops, why is this not doing what I want? Okay, let's just have it do it automatically for us. There we go. Why it wasn't working. Okay, we have this import statement, so now we can import the data here. Now we have access, right? So we can use it in whatever way we want. So I'm just going to start really simply. I'm going to go here, open up curly braces inside the fragment, and just say, let's go and map over these articles dot map, because this is an array. I'm going to take each article here, and I can map it to, in this case, some JSX. So for now, let's just spit out the titles maybe. So I'm just going to create h1 tags, and I'm going to spit out article.title. Let's see. Huzzah. We have the list of titles showing up. All right. Any questions on anything that we just did there? We did a couple of different things, so I want to make sure we all understand what we just went through. Fragments. So there's okay. So why do fragments exist? So in React, there's a rule that whenever you return something, let's say like a component, right? There can only be one overall tag. So for example, if I try to do let's for example say I like made this just a div, right? Div, oh, why is it doing that? Div, right? So this would still work perfectly fine, exactly the same. But if I tried to make another div like this and say like second element, this is actually just like not allowed. Like you actually will see here, like React complains significantly, and it actually says adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. So I can't have two essentially tags at the top here, top line tag. So the way I would solve this is I could either just wrap this all in a div, right, like this, and then now this goes back to being fine. Or if you don't actually care about the div, you can just do a fragment. That's really why it's there. Div one. Mom, can you say more? What do you mean there? Oh, so in this case, H1 here is referring to like a heading one element, right? HTML element. Um, versus the div is just a div, right? There's no such thing as a kind of div one tag, right? There's just a div tag. Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully like all of these tags are just they should just they're just regular. They're just like HTML tags. They are HTML tags. Effectively, you can effectively treat them like HTML tags for all intents and purposes. So all the same, like p tag, a tags, all the h tag, like h1, h2, h3, all the way to h6, divs, spans, like everything carries over into React, just like you would know from HTML. I think the one other thing I would just quickly say about fragments as well. Articles dot map used for importing articles. So no, so in this case, art all we're doing is, I think just to be maybe even more clear about this, let me do this. Let me just get rid of the import statement altogether. And what I could do is just define the articles array up here. So I could say fonts, articles, in this case, I'll just just have one. So I can just define the variable here. And then because it's an array, it has access to the map function, right? And then what the map function allows us to do is it says we can take every single element in the articles array and then translate that into something else, right? So in this case, all we're saying is let's take every element in the articles array. Let's get access to each element here as we go through it, which is what this article is. I could change it to literally anything else, like X, A, like literally whatever. I can call it whatever I want. And then I'm just going to map it in this case to just give me an H1 tag with the article's title. And we'll add to that in a second. But that's what the mapping does. It's a function on the array. It doesn't matter if it's an import array or whatever. The import was just because, just for organization, I just threw this articles array just in a separate file. So I just need to bring it in to get access to it in this app file. But I could also just as well just do this, what I have right here, just define it up at the top of the file. Cool. Yeah, mapping over arrays is a very common pattern in React. So definitely make sure you feel comfortable with them. And if you don't, like, ask questions, please, because yeah, you'll see that a lot. Definitely not just in this class, but just if you keep doing React stuff, you'll see it quite a bit. Cool. The one other just nuance I want to call out as well with fragments, which doesn't get as much attention, I think, as it should, just to really understand what's going on here. So if I were to just go and just look at the HTML that's being generated right now. So let me just quickly make this back just to make it more clear. I'm going to make this a main tag instead that surrounds all of this. So if I go and I load this up, and I'm just going to open up the HTML tree here on the left. And let's see, why is this taking? Oh, I know why it's taking so long. Here we go. Okay, refresh. Okay, so if I look at just the generate HTML, right? I have body. I have. Hopefully, you all can see this. Let me just zoom in. We have the body. We have the div, which is this root. So this is the root of the application. And then we have the main tag, and then we have the two divs we have, right? We have this list that is just now list of one, and then the second element. If I were to instead just use a fragment instead of the main tag, watch what happens. It actually it's as if that layer in the tree does not exist. It actually just now directly underneath the root, it just directly spits out the two divs, the list that we were mapping over and the second element. So a fragment is really for like, if you don't care about the structure, it's just for being able to return a single element like the rule, like React requires you to. It could, yeah. So that's definitely one nuance is like styling. If you tie styling to certain elements, there could be issues. It also like changes the whole like what elements are siblings of each other versus not. Like it changes a lot of that, right? Behavior. So that's why I wanted to just highlight like there's actually a different behavior that happens when you use a fragment versus not. And so it's good to be conscious of that. Yeah, of course. Cool. Any other questions on anything we've done so far? All right, let's keep rolling then. So I'm just going to go back to using our full data. So we have a few different things to work with. And the styling of this right now isn't the greatest. We'll get to that. Let's just add some more things, right, that we had here. So we had this title, and let's see, what else did we have? Let's see, we had, well, I have this copy here. So we had the publication date, the body. Let's get the body going. So I'll just put it in the p tag, and I'll say article dot body, and you already will see here we have the same thing again. Has to have a single parent. This is a great place, I think, to have a fragment. So let's put a fragment in this as well. Okay, so now we've got content coming in as well. We need to fix the styling here, but we'll do that. Let's throw some other things in here. Maybe we want the author obviously here as well. I'll put that in the span tag. Uh, author, great. We got the author showing up, and let's also put the date. Let's put the date maybe next to the author. So I might just put it here, article dot publication date, separator in between, and let's see what else. Okay, we have the image as well, and the tags. So let's just for now put the images, and then we'll put the tags in. So for the image, maybe in different places I can put the image. Let's put the image maybe above the p tag here. So image source article dot image URL. Okay. Uh, Apparently it doesn't like that image. I wonder if this is a real image or not. It might not be. Yeah, guess not. Okay. Well, we can put some real images in later. That's fine. We need a line break. Yes. I think, do you mean like, let's put maybe a separator? Let me just remove this image for now. Separators between. I think that's a good call. Um, the simplest way to do it, which I'm going to do here, is I can apply a horizontal rule. We have that. I probably will change this a little bit in terms of how we might do it later, but that's a good start. I get rid of the second element. We don't need it. All right, so we have our list. Hopefully, any questions about that? Running out the different parts of the articles. Cool. Okay. So let's do something then. So I think this is like it doesn't look the greatest right now. We can get to that as well. But I think from a logic perspective, we've gotten this to work. But let's take this article list and let's just move it into a separate component. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm first going to create a new file for this component. Personally, I like to create a folder where it houses all the components that I'm creating here. You don't, again, early on when you have only a few components, you don't need to do this, but over time you'll want to have a components folder to organize things. And I'm going to call it article list.jsx. And just note that we use JSX here because we're going to put some JSX rendering code in this versus, for example, this data file was just a standard JavaScript file because it's just regular old JavaScript. Okay, so here I'm going to define a new component. I'm going to call it article list. You might have guessed. So components are just JavaScript functions, effectively. That's effectively what they end up becoming. And you'll see, for example, like the app, for example, this is a component, right? So it's also just a JavaScript function. This is using the more traditional function, the way the write functions. I personally like using arrow functions in JavaScript, so I like writing my components like this, but they're exactly the same either way. And I just need to make sure I return something here. And I'm going to copy all of this div that we have here. I'm just going to paste it into this article list. It doesn't know what articles is, so I'm going to grab the import that we used in the other file. So we have access to articles. Okay, cool. Now let me remove this div in the app file. If I save it, we have nothing. And now let me pull in the component we just created. So I'm just gonna, the nice thing with code editors is if I can just start typing article list, and of course, for some reason it doesn't want to work, it should just allow us to import. So import, there's a reason actually we can't import. That's because we never exported this file or never exported this anything from this file to import. So I'm going to say export default article list, the only export in the file. And now if I start typing, it should show up. Yep, article list. If I hit enter, it'll put the import statement here that we need. I can just self-close this because I'm not passing anything to it. Now if I hit save, let's see what this error is. Uh, okay, right. So it doesn't like this import statement. And the reason it doesn't like this import statement is because it's incorrect for this structure. We need to change this a little bit. So it's going to be like that instead. And there we go. We have our data back as we had before. And we can remove this import since we don't need it. Okay, questions on any of that? That was maybe quite a few new things for some folks. So I want to make sure you all understand everything we just did. The difference in one dot versus two dot. Yeah, so this is just a way to indicate, right, a file path. That's what we're doing here. So one dot just means stay in the same directory as you're in right now. So for example, here in this case, I'm in the app.jsx file. So in the app.jsx file, first stay in the same directory you're in, okay? Then go into the components folder, which is a sibling of this, and then go article list. Two dots, like we did here, means go up a directory, right? Go up a folder. So in this case, I'm in article list. So I'm already in this subfolder. So first I'm saying go up a folder. So go into out of this components folder into the source folder, and then find the data.js file. So that's the difference. So up is like alt left arrow. Yeah, exactly. It's like let's go like to the parent folder, like one level up in the folder structure. Yep. Other questions about the whole converting this into a separate component and bringing it into this other file? Because this is really the key part, I think, of this week is starting to get a wrap your head around this idea. Cool. Well, feel free to jump in if any questions do come up. Now, you might say right now this is kind of useless. Like, why are we doing this for this application? I agree. For this application, I mean, there's a couple reasons why, and even in this application, I would do it. The first is this all of a sudden becomes a lot easier to read, right? Like right now, it's like, okay, I'm in the main app, and then I'm returning the article list. Okay, that's like super easy to read. what is in that article list, okay, I can go and jump in and then look at, all this stuff we just created. But let's say we wanted to add another kind of overall structure, right? So I know that suggestion that we had earlier was like, let's make a navigation or a header. So maybe let's do that, right? Um, so why not? Let's create another component. I call it header.jsx. And I create here again, make it a new component. Let's see, functional component. And let's say for this, I'm going to return to be good syntax. Let's do a header tag. And inside this header tag for now, let's put, my React blog as the title. And we could put some navigation links in here. For example, we'll get to putting a navigation link in eventually. But like I just put for now, put navigation links. And let's make sure to export this component. Otherwise we can't use it in other files. And I'm just going to bring it in. So I'll say header from my components folder. Lovely. And now there we go. The H1 tag comes in. Again, functionally speaking, I could have just stuck this header, directly in this app.jsx. Like I could just have done this, right? And it's like the same thing. But in this case, it becomes nice organization, right? And now it's like, okay, first I'm rendering out the header, then the article list. This becomes much easier to read. And obviously, as you add more and more things to the application, that becomes more and more important. Now, the other thing I will say that becomes really cool is this idea of reusability of components. So for example, I can easily just say, I want another article list, a second copy of it. I just copied and pasted the tag. And now all of a sudden, if I scroll, I have a second copy of the articles. I need to go and copy all this code twice. I just have to make another instance of the component here, and that's it. So it becomes super easy. And you could imagine a situation, I mean, right now, there's like no reason I would do this, right? It's the same data twice. But you could imagine, and as we go forward in the class, you'll start to see this. Maybe I abstract the logic a little bit and say, let me pass in a custom data object into this list and have it use that, right? Instead of having the static articles data that I just import in directly. And so maybe then in each of these two instances, I pass in different data. Everything else is the same. It looks the same. It's structured the same. I just pass in different data instead, and it can just generate the list. That's where you start to get really into the power of React, right? You have these same abstract components, which can reuse multiple times, and it becomes much easier to maintain and write code. So that's where we're headed. But even now, you can see it becomes at worst, it's really good for organization. All right. Any questions on any of that? Cool. Maybe as a why not? Let's do one more component. Why not? I'm gonna add a footer component too because we can. Uh, Fonts footer equals this. I'll return footer. For now, let's say created by the Code the Dream J React class or the J React class. Let's export this component. Let's bring it in. No, there we go. We got a footer. Get rid of this code that we don't really need. I'll leave this to do here. Cool. Okay, just as a last step, and before we maybe try to go work this through as a PR, maybe just to see that through. Right now, images, I'll find an image URL we can use maybe going forward. I'll go find that separately after the session today. And I'll leave that out. Let's just add a little bit of styling because right now, I'm not a big fan of the way this is looking right now. So, and again, we can apply this in the article list. There's different ways we can do it. I think the way that you'll maybe think about doing this in this class is just doing it directly in, let's say, app.css file, or talk about CSS modules as well. So let's just stick with that. So let's just do some very simple stuff. Now for styling, I probably am going to want to make this a div because then I can give it a class name that I can then reference in CSS. So let me call this article. Now I can go into the app.css file. There's a bunch of stuff here. Probably a lot of it we can get rid of, but for now, I'm going to apply some styles onto the article class. Maybe I'll do a display, flex direction, direction. Ooh, let's start with that maybe. Okay, that won't work. Uh, flex direction. There we go. Call, and then yeah, maybe let's also reduce the sizes of these H1s too in here. Article H1, font size, uh, maybe 2 rem. Yeah, it's starting to look a little bit better. So anyway, we obviously will start playing around this more and more, but hopefully you can see we're writing this once, and we'll see how this will continue to evolve. I can use the same article class I'm using everywhere, and then now this is just propagating to everything else. Cool. Okay, let's actually push this up to GitHub. So I'm going to go into the terminal and let me zoom in, make sure y'all can see. Again, we're working the week 2 branch. Let's check git status. We're seeing there's a bunch of changes that happened here. We deleted a bunch of stuff. We obviously added a bunch of code. I would encourage you all to commit frequently and often. There's no such thing as committing too frequently to a branch, in my opinion. So no one really cares. No one's going to look at each of your commits. They're only going to see the beginning and the end. So let's add. So git add all. Now these are all green, so they're stage 4 commit. So then git commit, let's say removed boilerplate code and created, and then I'm going to say created basic list of articles, created components for header and footer. Okay, that's committed. And then last time I did set up a GitHub repository that this is connected to. Because we're in a new branch, we need to specify which branch we want this to push to remotely. So I need to say git push origin. And then in this case, I'm going to make it create a new branch in GitHub called week 2 as well. And this will work. But if I need to run this again, I would have to keep specifying origin week 2 every time I want to push to week 2, branch up. So as we talked about last time, I can add this -u flag, which will just essentially save it in memory. So every time we are pushing from this branch locally, push it to this origin week 2 branch in GitHub. So let's push it up. I pushed it. I'm going to open up the GitHub, and this should be the ctdj React block. There we go. So now we have a new branch, week 2. So I'm going to, and it also says week 2 has recent pushes, so you can compare and pull requests. I'm going to manually create one, so you see that. Click pull requests, just like you would do for an assignment. Create a new pull request. I want to compare week 2 with the base being the main branch for comparison. All your changes should be visible now below. Create pull request. Should add some titles and descriptions, good practice. I will just do this. and I will say week 2. Create pull request, and there we go. We create a pull request. And as a reminder, as you're submitting assignments, this is what you submit. This is the link you submit. You copy the link here, and that's the link you submit in your assignment. Your reviewer will look at this code, will leave any comments. Once they approve it, you can hit this green merge pull request button, which will merge it back into main. And then you need to update your main locally by pulling, by running git pull, and then you start your assignment by creating a new branch off of the update code. Okay, branch has conflicts that must be resolved. So that is something that you will need to deal with before you can even merge the code. Um, that's interesting that you're already saying that pretty early, but maybe at the end, if you want, we can take a look at it together and see what you're seeing and try to debug and see what's going on. Cool. Any questions on this GitHub process, just as another reminder for how it works? Cool. So just to see this through, I looked at this code. Obviously, it's fantastic and perfect, of course. So I'm going to just merge it here myself. Confirm merge. We have this. This is merged up now into main. And so now what I'll need to do is I need to go back to my code. I need to now switch back to the main branch. This is now out of date. So I need to run git pull to pull the latest changes. And so now pull all these changes we just made. And now this is where I would then create a new branch for, let's say, week 3 for the next assignment. So that's the cadence that you'll go through. All right. Any questions on any of that? All right. So that should wrap up, I think, most of what I wanted to talk about today. Any other questions that people have? Just as a final reminder, please submit your attendance. And then also it'd be nice if you can submit the feedback form as well for this session as well, so I can make sure these keep getting better and better, hopefully, and more useful. But also open up to any questions that you all have. Oh, and hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly for the L. If it's
Y-
helpful, happy to talk through your specific situation as well live.
Yeah, would you mind real quick?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and folks, feel free to maybe stick around if you want. Just, it's good to probably see this as well.
I'm not quite
You'll see this
sure.
somewhere too.
I'm not sure how to share my screen or show you like what I'm going through right now.
Do you have, do you see there should be in the Zoom, there should be a share button at the bottom in the
Share.
Zoom window.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Um.
Cool, I can see it.
Okay. Um. Yeah. So I'm not sure why it's like flagging me with errors already.
Yeah. Could you go into your files change tab? So
Files
at the top,
change.
yeah, it says conversation commits checks. In the so oh, I have a pointer tool, I think somewhere. Um, Here, I think I have a pointer tool. Do I? Annotate. Here we go. This thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, okay.
All right.
Okay. And then okay, so the README, okay, you update the README, that's good. Huh. Yeah, it looks fine. Um, okay, so here,
Can I point out like something that confused me
yep,
when I did the pull request? So when I did
yep,
it and I tried to resolve the conflicts, it's giving me this that I'm not quite sure how to interpret.
yep. Yeah, so that is the lovely way that Git tells you there's a merge conflict. It's very fun. Yeah, especially when there's like no differences between those two versions
Right.
that's playing out. Um, so okay, so here's how let's walk through like how I would resolve this typically.
Uh-huh.
Um, so let's go into your code editor, and we can actually do everything there.
Okay. Oh, can you see my screen? My VS Code?
I can't see your VS Code. I can still only see your Chrome.
How do I do that?
I think you might have to reshare with the second window, with a different window.
Oh, wait, no.
Yep, there we go. I can see it.
Okay.
Okay, so you are in your week two uh, branch, correct?
Yes, I'm in my week two branch. Huh?
Cool. Yep. Okay. So, because you're getting some practice of this early. Let's run here. I'll type in the command for you so you're aware. Let's get rid of this. So I want you to run. Let's run git. Yeah, folks, feel free to drop. This is now like because there's extra credit over time. If you're just interested in watching, let's go through this. Git rebase. Okay, go ahead and run the command I just put in the chat. Git rebase main.
Okay.
Just for context, so you're not just like typing stuff in without
Yeah.
knowing what it's doing. So rebase is a way to essentially say like if you have a branch, right, you're working on code, you can
Uh-huh.
say, okay, Git, take essentially take some other branch, which I specify in this case like main, as it
Hmm.
is, and then take all the changes that I have tagged on to this branch I'm on right now, like week two, and just reapply those on top of what's currently the main branch. So it's almost like, okay, all the change because you know, in this case it won't matter, but essentially saying like reapply those changes on what is today the main branch now.
Mm, got
So
it.
that will surface essentially any merge conflicts that will arise essentially for us to work through.
Is this like a universal fix for every pull request
It's
issues?
It's I don't know if there's a universal fix for these things.
Uh-huh.
It is one tool in your toolkit to manage with these
I
things.
see. Okay. So depending on like the severity of the error, I guess if
Yeah,
it's something minor, then I guess I can just use rebase main.
yeah. I think
Okay.
rebase maintenance generally is a good place. It's not a bad place to start. Let me put it that way. Yeah,
Once I do this, do I need to repush everything or
yeah.
make another?
We will do that. Well, essentially, when you run this command, what will happen is, um, oh, it ran. Okay. Branch is up to date. Interesting. I expected the merge conflicts to surface here. Um, that's very interesting. Can you switch to your main branch? So if you just check out to your main branch and just make sure that you uh
It's
and,
git checkout main, right?
yep, that's right. And
Okay.
then just run git pull to make sure you have the latest. Ah, there you go. Okay. That's why Git the rebase wasn't erroring. Okay, so now let's go back to your week two branch. And by the way, you can just if you hit tab, it should autocomplete. Just
Yeah.
as an FYI.
Uh-huh.
Cool. Now let's run git rebase main. And now I think it should surface whatever it had. There we go. Exactly what you want to see.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So you can see, right? Merge conflict is there. So it's the same merge conflict essentially that GitHub was showing. So, but this now gives us a way to actually like resolve them.
Mm.
So, okay, so it'll tell you, merge conflict in README, and then merge conflict in source slash app, right? So let's go to the README file first.
Okay.
So it's essentially like it's reapplying your changes in real time, essentially that like all the work you just did. So, okay, so it's saying, yeah, those are like the same thing. So you can click, you see how this is, here, let me bring the annotation tool up again. It's quite helpful. You see that there's this, oops, okay, that's a horrible circle, but you see those like list of options that are there.
I see, yeah.
So that's VS Code being helpful. Let me get those off the screen. Um, So you can click, for now, you can see, right, kind of like there's current change, incoming change. So in this case, it's the same. So you can pick the
Uh-huh.
current or incoming. Essentially, it's like, again, just for context, like current change would be like, this is the current change that the main branch has, and incoming change would be like what your new branch is trying to do to that line of code. So you're just
Hmm.
picking one or the other, like which version do you want? Or you can just like scrap and say, actually, like I need something else altogether. In this case, it's literally the same. So you can click either one.
Whichever. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
cool. Okay, now okay, file hopefully saved. Um, so now so that resolves that conflict.
Hmm.
So let's go to the other one, app JSX, and then okay, lovely. This one you probably want to accept incoming change because you actually like the changes you made are actually like valid.
I see. Okay.
Cool.
And hopefully
Um,
that resolves the issue.
yep. And by the way, just a super quick thing as I'm just looking at your code.
Hmm.
For now, to do form and to-do list, because you're not passing anything like children, you could
Hmm.
self-close them if you wanted to.
I see.
You don't have to, but it's the same code functionally, but you could self-close them.
Is that best practice?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think generally speaking, yeah, it just cleans it up a little bit.
Okay. Makes sense, yeah.
Uh, cool. Okay, so you made your changes. So now if you go to your terminal, it'll actually, if you look at the instructions it gives you, it says once you've added conflicts manually, mark them as resolved with git add the conflicted files and then git rebase continue. So let's run those. So let's just run git add. In this case, just run git add dot. It'll just add everything.
Okay.
And
And
then git rebase dash dash continue. Yep. Um, you can just close that file that I just opened for you.
mhm.
Cool. And it says successfully rebased and updated stuff. Okay. So
Awesome.
now, if you run, this might be a little bit scary, but it should be fine. If you run git push dash dash force, which is like not
Like that.
recommended you do, yeah, just run
Uh-huh.
it. Uh, okay. That is because upstream branch. Okay. Um, so this is where it might be good to use that dash U flag I mentioned earlier, just so you don't have to keep specifying like origin slash week two components.
So would it be git push W dash dash force?
So you still need what so you still in this case you still need to specify like, hey, you need to push to origin and then the
Oh,
week
I
zero
see.
two components. Yeah.
Git. Oh, origin week two,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. Yep. It dash
It,
U essentially tells Git like just save this configuration for me. I don't have to specify it every time on this branch.
is that the right
Uh
command?
yeah, and then let's do dash dash force on that. Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, typically like you don't want to use dash dash force.
Uh-huh.
It's like, like a last resort thing. But in this
All
case,
right.
we use it. So now if you go back to GitHub, I think the issue should go away, hopefully.
One, I need to
Merge.
make
No, so okay, so this is the other cool
another
thing
pull
is
request.
so your pull request is tied to the branch. So as long as you keep pushing stuff to the branch, the PR will automatically update.
Oh, I see.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, it's gone now.
Lovely. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you
Congratulations.
so much.
You have resolved your first and hopefully, well, unfortunately not your last merge
Uh-huh.
conflict.
Yeah, it'll get tougher from here on. So I'm good with my screen, right?